Hello again, YouTubers. Welcome back to the Board Game Captain. I'm the Board Game Captain,
I'm Lynn.
and today we're going to be reviewing and showing you how to play Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn House War, a game designed by Kevin Wilson and published by Crafty Games. Now, the reason it has Brandon Sanderson's name on this is because this game is based on a series of fantasy novels by Brandon Sanderson, which is known as the Mistborn Trilogy, I believe.
I think so.
And this game was sent to us to be reviewed by Joey Turco and Ed Healy of Gamerati. And I just wanted to call that out and thank them for sending us this copy to do some content on. Now, I'm not familiar with the book series, and this is one of those cases where, knowing it being based on a book series, I was a little hesitant to get this one myself, because I was worried that I'd be lost because I'm not a fan of the book series and I wouldn't know what was going on. So that's actually going to be a big part of the review. Is I'm gonna come at this from the perspective of someone who is not into the official IP, and then would I recommend it to people anyway? Mm-hmm. I mean, now you had heard of the book series at least.
Yeah, I watch a couple of book reviewers on YouTube, and two of them, well, I guess more than a couple. There's multiple book reviewers that I follow on YouTube, and at least two of them have mentioned these books. So I was familiar with them.
But you haven't read them either.
I haven't read them. I don't really have any interest in reading them.
I might actually, because the whole political dynamic does sound interesting to me. But we're getting a little off topic. So this game is listed as 3 to 5 players for ages 14 and up, and as a 60 to 90 minute game. So I want to start there. Now, the 3 to 5 players, well, we've played this game at the lowest and the highest player counts here. We played it at 3 and we played it at 5. The number of resources you get on the board differs based on the number of players. 3 players has one difference in the problem track. There's one less row that you use on the problem track, and we'll show you that in a minute. But other than that, the game plays basically the same and just as well at 3 as it does at 5. I don't really see a significant difference enough that I have a problem with it at any particular player count. I'm glad, though, that they didn't try to shoehorn a 2-player version in on this game, because I think this game would not work at 2 players.
No, it would have to be like a completely different game. More just like a kind of card game at that point, without even the board. Just kind of like a Magic the Gathering kind of card
I'm really glad they didn't do that. I'm really glad they didn't do that. So now the age is 14 and up. I'm a little of two minds on this one. I'm curious as to your opinion. So with the 14 and up, now I do not think that the mechanics of this game are overly complex in a way that they would require someone to be 14 to play it. But there is a maturity level that is needed for this game because of the fact that the game is completely based around negotiating. And that might be why it's 14 and up. What do you think? Do you think it's appropriate?
Yeah, I think it's 14 is a good age.
Good age for
this.
Now, because of the maturity level? Because, I mean, it's not really that complex.
No, it's not complex, but I could see how someone younger might get railroaded into doing things and agreeing to things that is not beneficial to them just because of their youth.
That's fair. That's a fair assessment. Now, the 60 to 90 minutes is actually a pretty good estimate for the standard size of this game, though the game does have the ability to tell you how to speed up or lengthen the game if you want by adding more cards into the timing deck. So I'm going to open this up and show you what comes in the box now. And the first thing we have here is this read this first sheet. Now, this was interesting because skimming through this, it gave you a gist of the basic idea of the different parts of the turn, and then you went into the rule book, which then fully fleshed that out for you and was good. But actually, what I like this better for is I like this better as a quick refresher tool when you're just wanting to skim over it to remember the rules again, to play again when you haven't played in a while. And for that, I think this is actually really awesome. And the rule book itself, it's full color. It contains lots of diagrams showing you the setup, and showing you how different mechanics work. There were really only a couple of things in here that I found even remotely ambiguous, and none of them were about major important rules. So, yeah, it's a really good rule book. I like that it has a thorough explanation, lots of examples, and towards the end of the book, it even runs you through an entire negotiation to give you an idea of how the negotiations can go. It has like a script style sample negotiation in here, which is really cool because the negotiating, which is very free form, and they don't really put a lot of rules on the negotiating itself, is a major part of the game, and it's important that that flows well. Now, the next thing we have here is the board. And I want to draw some special attention to the board here because it's beautiful. I mean, the artwork on here is really nice. They have like this sunset over the city, and you go over to the other side, and there's a volcano erupting and purple lightning, and there's spaces for everything you need there to be spaces for, including things just like resource pools. You don't have to put them off to the side of the board. They made a space for it on the board. And so it's functional, it's attractive, and generally speaking, production quality-wise, I would say this is actually on the top end of recent boards we've looked at for games. I mean, there's been a lot of boards where we feel like we're almost making excuses for them when we're talking about, oh, the board's a little bland, or the board, it could have been better. Like, this one is, I mean, what do you think?
I think it's pretty.
But also it's very functional, too, in addition to being pretty. You have room for everything, which is great. So the next thing we have is we have some standard cardboard punch-out chits. If you've played a board game, you have seen cardboard punch-out chits. This game has a lot of them. As you can see in this area in the board, in the box, there are lots of punch-out chits. Now, I do have one minor complaint about this. There are a million different kinds of punch-out chits, and in regard to the ones for positive and negative points, I feel they should have supplied some little mini Ziploc bags to separate them all out. I'm thinking I might separate them out in the future. Also, maybe to separate out things like the ruined tokens for when you ruin a resource on somebody's player board, as well as the different resources themselves, because it does make it a little hard to fish through the box for them. And now the insert's not bad, but on the other hand, the other thing they could have done is had separate sections in the insert for each of these types of tokens. That might have been a little too hard, but Ziplocs wouldn't have been hard. So that's a minor complaint that I have. I just wanted to draw attention to that. Now I've got these two little minis that apparently were stretch goals in the Kickstarter, and I don't have a whole lot to say about them because they're fairly standard looking little minis, but they're thoroughly unnecessary. The game also comes with cardboard tokens to do what they did. And generally speaking, I mean, one is to...
Yeah, this is the cardboard token for Unrest.
One of them is a token for the Unrest track, and they look nice. He looks nice sitting on the Unrest track, and that's cool. He's just not necessary. This is...
My only complaint with at least the Unrest track guy is that I think at least once we knocked him over, and that wouldn't have happened with...
No, it might have not. It might have happened.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you would.
But we remembered where he was.
Yeah,
the Unrest track's fairly easy
to
keep track
of. It's easier to
use the token.
Yeah.
But also, and I like this guy for putting it in front of other people to say, oh, it's your turn, and I do like him for that. But these are just like a nice little generous thing that they did, and I know that they did it for stretch goals in the Kickstarter. But they are unnecessary. They're not needed. But they're cool. Now, the next thing we have is the cards. And there are lots of different kinds of cards. So the first thing you have is you have the faction cards. Now, the faction cards are really nice. These are incredibly well done. Nice artwork. They have the symbology on the cards. It's very easy to read. That shows you what the starting resources and the resources you get every round are, as well as on the back of them, each one of these cards can be flipped over and is a cheat sheet for every phase of the turn. These are great. Then we have a deck of personality cards. These are basically kind of like action cards. You play them throughout your turn to do things. Some of them you play them and they stay out in front of you to have continued effects, or some of them you play face down and will have like ambush effects later on, like, haha, I flipped this one up and now I suddenly gain some points or something. These are they're not the uber nice linen finish that I really like, but they don't seem to have a problem sticking to each other. They have a nice glossy finish, and the artwork they've chosen for this game is really top notch. I have no complaints about the artwork or the production on the cards in general. I think they're really good. What is your opinion on the cards in this game?
They're nice.
No, nothing to go in deeper there?
I really don't care what's on the cards as long as the game is functional.
You're all about the mechanics.
Yeah.
But what about like the symbology on the cards? Is
it's
it easy?
Clear.
It's clear and easy to read for you?
Yes.
So now that being said, the final kind of card, which has a lot of symbology, are the problem cards. And they are clear and easy to read. So they show you a Roman numeral in the top left corner, which tells you where on the unrest track they start. They have symbols on the bottom of the different kinds of resources that are needed to solve their problem. They have a little volcano eruption to show what happens when the card erupts, which means it goes off the right end of the track. And they have a points listing in a regular number on the top right side, which tells you how many points you have to split amongst the people bargaining on solving this card. They also will tell you if they have a solve effect. It'll say when solved, and there's no symbol for that, but it'll say when solved, this happens, like add unrest to the board or something. So now, I really like the artwork on these. I really like the production in these. And now there has been no problem with the symbology. I mean, it's all been very functional and very well done.
Yes.
So that is everything that comes in the box for Mistborn House War. Now we're going to take you over to the table, and we're going to show you how this game plays, and we're going to run you through a few turns. Then we're going to come back, and we're going to talk about how this game feels, and we're going to rate it and review it. Okay, so here we can see a game of Mistborn House War set up for 3 players. Now we have one player set up over here who is playing House Venture. We have one player over here playing House Alariel, and Lynn is over there. And what house are you playing, Lynn?
House Locale.
Yes, now the houses are randomly shuffled up, and you deal 1 to each player. And it shows you on the house card both what the starting resources and cards are that you get, as well as that's the same as what you draw at the beginning of each of your turns. And on the back, it has a really handy cheat sheet to run you through all the phases of the turn. Now, everybody gets their random house. You set up the board in the middle of the table. You shuffle up the personality deck and place it on the board. You take the problem deck. You shuffle it up. You split it evenly into 4 parts. Then you take the Vin card and you shuffle her into one of the 4 quarters and put 2 of the other 3 quarters on top and remove 1 quarter of the cards from the game. They will not be used. Then you put a number of each of the resources as dictated by the rulebook based on how many people are playing the particular game. Everybody takes their starting resources as shown on their card, like I said before. The starting unrest track starts at 0. You can put this little mini here on 0 to show that. And you deal out a number of starting problems equal to the number of players. Something I should note is that since we were playing a 3-player game, at 3 players you only use the first 2 rows of the problems here. The 3rd row is for 4 or 5 players only. Now, then you check. There is a list in the book, I'm going to show it to you right now, which shows you all the different starting factions. And the higher number you are on the list, the person with the highest number on the list in the game is going to get the active player token and start first, which is Lynn for this game. And now we're just going to run you through a few turns and show you how this goes. This is a game that is better shown than explained, in my opinion. So, starting with Lynn, we're going to run through a few turns. Go ahead.
First, I'm going to play a lasting personality card.
What is your lasting personality card? Why don't you show the camera?
He gets played face up, and when I solve or help solve a problem, that cost includes 2 food. I get an extra favor.
Now, he has an extra ally cost if you are the particular house. I'm guessing that since you didn't mention it, you're not the allied house?
I'm not, no.
What allied house would he have worked with?
Hot.
And if he was with Hot, now, correct me if I'm wrong, that particular, because there's a bunch of cards that are like that for different resources, it usually means that you could either gain a favor or a disgrace, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so then what are you going to do?
Then I'm going to collect my resources.
Okay. So now at this point, Lynn's faction over there is actually going to basically have double resources.
Can you hand me 2 cards?
But of course, it's a little far for you. Here you go. And 4 cards in her hand also, which is very
3
nice.
cards.
Oh, 3 cards. Oh, that's right.
One.
You did just play one. Silly me.
Yes. Let's see. then the problems worsen.
Now this happens in an order of Lynn's choosing, and it can be important because if all the rows that we are using are filled up, for instance, if Lynn had chosen to move this problem up first, it would have had to jump over to the next row and would have moved 2 rows over, 2 columns over rather than just 1. But and that is very important for based on, because each of these cards will often have effects for if they erupt when they hit the end of the board, or if you solve the problem, which we're going to get to in a moment. Now, sometimes you're working to save the city, and sometimes you're working to destroy the city, so you may want to weigh which one of those you want to happen, if you want it to get solved or you want it to erupt when deciding what order to do those in. So go on.
And then I have to add a problem to the board.
Indeed.
This one, personalities may not be played when making or closing a deal to solve it.
Okay.
If it erupts, each house returns all of their adium to the supply.
Ooh.
And gaining 2 disgrace for each adium returned.
And it starts in number 2. Okay, so we've got 2 problems at level 2 and 2 at level 3 right now.
Yes. So let's see. I'm gonna go for solving that one.
Okay, so you're going to try to solve the visit from an inquisitor. Now that requires 2 of the food resource, 1 of the money resource, 2 of the prestige resource, 1 of the ska resource, which is basically peasants, and 2 of the warrior resource, which now we have to negotiate with Lynn based on solving this particular problem here. We have to negotiate with our resources to help her solve the problem, but we're going to be negotiating for our fair share of the prestige, the victory points that we get off of that problem. Now, this problem has 13 victory points, 13 positive points that we can get off it, and if the other 2 players are going to contribute their resources towards it, they're going to want a fair share. So the player over here that's playing House Alariel notices that lots of their stuff can go towards it, and they're going to immediately say so. They're going to say, hey, you know what? Look at this. If I can give you, now you've got all the food you want, so I'm going to keep my food back, but you know what? I can give you a prestige, I can give you a warriors, I can give you...
I don't need that. I got my own.
Oh, you got your own ska too. But I can give you a prestige, a warriors, and a coin towards that, and that would be more than a third of it. They said, so they would like... They would offer...
I can give the same amount, and it's my turn.
That's true, but they're saying for their money, they would like 4 of the points, and then you're basically throwing 3 there. So now, how many are in there? 3, 8.
We need an extra warrior and a prestige, I believe.
Okay, so the other me as the final player over here, I say, well, I can give a prestige and I can give an atium, which is a wild and can count as anything, for the warrior. But I would like 4 for my 2 as well. I want 4.
How about this is weird because there's only one of you.
Okay, go on.
But I'm trying to give this person a deal.
Okay.
Which the deal is, how about I play a card, steal his 2 resources, and we just split it. I get 1 more.
They say they think that's fine. I say that's garbage.
I'm going to play this card, and it's play at any time, steal up to 2 resources.
So you're just going to take my resources from me.
I'm going to take these, and us 2 are just going to split this. I get 1 point more than them.
Okay. All right, so they're getting a better deal out of that, so they're totally willing to do it. So all the resources that were spent go back into the resource pool over here, and then Lynn will remove that card from the board. She will activate any kind of effect for having that card been solved.
There's no solve problem.
Okay, in which case she's now going to split up the victory points as she agreed upon with the House Alariel player over here.
Was that 7 and 6?
It is, that's what you said, yes. So now, having done that, it's going to be, while she's doing that, we're going to move the token on to the next player over here. And while they're getting their victory points, which their victory points are placed face down here, so that everyone else has to just remember how many points the other people have, it now comes to the player over here. So at the very beginning of their turn, the player over here decides they would like to play a face-down personality in their area. Now, face-down personalities are only able to be played if they specifically say they may be played face-down, and that one did. And then they're gonna, to get a little revenge, they're gonna play a Kandra spy, which allows them to steal a stays in play personality from another player, and they want to steal your personality.
I'm canceling that.
What now? Oh, I can't get a leg up today. Oh well. So there we go. So I do not steal that personality. So I'm going to move on to my regular parts of my turn.
I was supposed to get an extra favor.
Because it had two.
Yes. So yes.
Okay. So you're just grabbing an extra favor, and that is because her face-up personality that she had, that I just reminded her was there, says every time she is part of solving a problem that requires 2 food, she gets an extra favor, which is why that was such a good deal for her. Now I'm going to collect my resources and cards, which for me is 2 cards plus 2 atium and 1 prestige. So now I've got a lot of atium, which is very nice, but I'm feeling a little angry at the moment. So I'm trying to figure out if there's stuff here. Let's see. That one adds 1 unrest. That one, if it erupts, it says 1 house gains 5 disgrace. So it's going to be, and this one says if it erupts, each house returns all their atium. I don't want that to go away. So the problems worsen. They go in the order of my choosing. So I'm going to let these move on up. And then I'm going to try to solve this problem right.
You didn't get a new problem.
Here. Yes, I have to add a new problem. Thank you for reminding me. Which goes in the first space. It is the major heist. Personalities may not be played when solving this problem. One house, if it erupts, one house must return all of their resources to the supply, and it's worth a possible 13 points. So I'm going to try to solve that problem right there. And I want to do some sort of deal on that problem. I have 3 atium, which I can put towards it to be anything. So I'm going to start discussing deals. Now, this player wants to put forth one of their ska. Would you like to do some deals with some ska and some other things there?
Well, you don't need my other things. I can.
Well, I need 2 things. 2 things to be the warriors. Well, one. Let's see. I've got 3, so I can have these 2 could be the warriors. 1 can be one of the coin. This is 1 ska. You can put forth a ska, but I need 2 of something else, which any 2 of anything can be 1 resource for 1 coin. So I would do a fair deal with you if you could put 2 more of your resource in for one of the money.
You just said you were angry, and now you're saying you're going to do a fair
deal?
Well,
you know what? I need a fair deal. So talk to me how much you're willing to do if you can put 2 of your other resources in, so we can solve this one. How much of the points would you like out of it?
What you need?
I need 2 to be the coin, basically.
Okay. Well.
To be the money. 2 of anything. It could be 1 of each. Could be 2 of anything. Doesn't matter.
Okay.
Okay. So how much of the 7 victory points would you like out of that, basically?
1.
Just 1?
Yes.
Really? That's strange. Okay. That's a deal. You can have the 1. They say they also want 1. That's fine. So then I'm going to take the 5, so I'll get some money. Maybe I'm feeling a little nicer towards you all now after you all backstabbed me. So we're going to split this up. So each of them are going to take 1 victory point, and I'm going to take 5. Is there a solve effect on that one?
No.
Okay, so it just leaves play. So there we go. So now I am all finished, so it is going to be the 3rd player's turn. And they are not going to play anything to start with. They're just going to get right into their turn. So the first thing they're going to do is collect some resources. So they get a food, they get a coin, they get a crown, they get a ska, they get a warriors, because they get a lot of resources, but they only get 1 personality card. So they don't get as many personality cards as the rest of us get. Then they have to worsen all the problems. So the first thing they're going to do is, when this one worsens, they're going to give 1 player 5 disgrace. So they've decided to do that to me. They want to mess me up, so they're going to give me 5 disgrace. Now 5 disgrace means I get 5 negative points out of the bank over here. There are positive and negative points. Here is a -5. And I add that to my current point total, which means now I'm breaking even at 0. Of course, everyone else has to keep track of that themselves. The other 2 problems move up and then add another problem to the board. The new problem starts in at level 2, and it says it is ministry infighting. When solved, add 1 unrest. When one house, and if it erupts, one house will gain 1 favor. So now, for their turn, let's see, they're probably going to look to this one here. So personalities cannot be played on this one, but if it erupts, everybody loses all of their atium, but actually all of the atium has been spent, so that's not that big a deal. So instead, they're going to choose to try to go for this one, which says, again, personalities cannot be used on this one, but if it erupts, one house is going to have to return all their resources to the supply, so that is pretty terrible. So now at this point, they're going to say 1 food, 1 coin from themselves, 1 warrior from themselves, 1 ska from themselves, 1, they've got a lot of it, and 1 prestige from themselves. So they can do 5 of the resources there, 3, 4, 5, which leaves a total of 3 others. I'm going to offer that I could do the prestige for points, but they turn me down because they've got their own prestige, which further angers me. So now, what are you going to do over there? They're looking for some more stuff, but they may have miscalculated a little bit. Okay, so at this point, they've actually miscalculated, so they're not going to get to solve this one, so it does not solve. There's no negative effect for it not solving, but if they had realized that, because I'm doing this quick, I actually didn't realize that there wasn't enough out there to solve this one, they could have instead played their token over here at past the turn, in which case they get to either draw a personality card or another resource. And in their case, because they don't get a lot of personality cards, I think they would instead choose to do that and would have drawn an extra personality card. And this is how the game plays. Now, every turn, cards come up, and cards, they move across the board, and either you solve them and get to do their solve effects if they have any, or they erupt and they do their erupt effects if they have any. And most cards will have erupt effects. And a lot of the effects will usually be things like adding more problems onto the board or giving you more unrest. There is nothing that reduces the unrest. And the unrest becomes very important as you move on, as you keep negotiating and dealing with these cards, because the thing is, if you make it to the end of the game, and the end of the game usually happens when Vin, the problem of Vin, comes out and is either solved or erupts. If she causes the end of the game to happen, and the unrest track was at 7 or less, somewhere in here, then whoever has the most points wins the game of Mistborn. However, if the effects that keep making the unrest go up at the end of any particular turn have the unrest at 8 or higher, the game ends then as well. But if the game ends because of you having 8 unrest or more, then whoever has the lowest score wins the game of Mistborn, which adds a very interesting dynamic because you want to save the city and you want to stop there being unrest until everybody backstabs you and you realize you have the least points, and then you want to watch the city burn.
I just wanted to make a correction that there are personality cards that can lower unrest.
Oh, there are?
Yes.
Oh, okay, my mistake. Them. Okay, so there you have it. So that is how you play a game of Mistborn House War. Oh, when I was talking about that, I meant not the personalities, the problem cards. There are no problem cards.
That's
true. There are personality cards, but there are no problem cards that will lower the unrest. So that is how you play a game of Mistborn House War. So now we're going to head back and we're going to talk about how this game feels. We're going to rate it and review it. Okay, welcome back. So that was how you play a game of Mistborn House War. So what should we talk about first with this one? What do you think? What should we address first?
I don't know.
How about the, okay, so let's start with what do you not like about this game? Where are some of the problems you have?
It's very peoply.
You're going to have to explain that because nobody understands what you're saying right now.
Oh, it's just there's a lot of interaction.
Yes, there is a lot of player interaction.
And
I like that.
And negotiation. I don't.
So are we adding? Now here's a question. So now you said you don't dislike this game, but you did have a distinct problem with the negotiation, the same sort of problem that in the past you have had with wagering and bidding games.
Yeah.
You have the same issue with negotiation, that you don't like to have to talk to the other players. You just like to do your actions.
Yeah, I don't like...
So are we adding this to the list of things you just don't like?
I don't like negotiating or haggling or anything. Like...
So no, but that's a personal preference
Yeah.
thing. That's not a reflection on the game. That's you. That's you. You're not a fan of the style of the whole negotiating aspect of the game.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, I am the opposite. I thought the negotiating was really interesting in this game. I thought the whole negotiating and then backstabbing people was the best part of this game. I thought it was really interesting. I loved negotiating with people. And, but then again, I liked the player interaction just like I like the player interaction in a bluffing game, which again, you don't usually like bluffing games. But like, as an example, the game, and even though this game doesn't play at all like it, the game Sheriff of Nottingham, this game reminds me a little of the Sheriff of Nottingham in that you have a whole lot of player interaction, and I think that's great. But then, just like Sheriff of Nottingham, you're not a big fan of Sheriff of Nottingham. You are not also a big fan of all the player interaction. But how about the rules and everything? I mean, the rules for solving everything are really tight.
Yeah, the rules are very clear, and the what you do on your turn is very concise.
Yes.
It's just like, you do this, and then you have a choice of doing two things. And I like that. It's just the whole, like, talking with other people.
That's your problem.
I'm not a fan of...
But now, in addition to the rules being very tight, the way they presented the rules, especially with that little sheet, I also feel this game is very easy to teach. I taught it to a group of people, and everybody picked up on it right away. It did not take very long to teach. It was very easy to learn. And that's also a big plus for me on this game, and I really liked that. Now, how about... Now, one thing in addition to... Now, obviously, it's been a bit divisive for us, the whole negotiation aspect. I really like it, and you're kind of not a fan. But what about that whole... And I really think it needs to be talked about, the fact that if... You have the decision. Are you going to save the city, or are you going to let it burn? And you're saving the city because you think there's a chance you're going to have the most points, or you're letting it burn because you think there's a chance you have the least points. Mm-hmm. And that's interesting. That's a very interesting mechanic of...
Yeah. I can't think of another game where it does that.
Yeah.
Where you have, if you save the city or you save the thing, the person with the most points wins, and
if you destroy it, the person with the lowest points wins.
Right.
Which, the interesting thing about that is nobody feels like they're out of it until the game is actually over, because if you know you have the lowest points, you could just try to sabotage everything and let the whole city burn down, which is so cool. And I've tried to do it twice now. I haven't succeeded. We've actually saved the city, much to my chagrin, twice. But I've been trying to burn it down. Now, that being said, the other thing I think we need to talk about with this game is how much it encourages basically the take that elements of the game. The take that elements of this game very much encourage viciousness, vindictiveness, and backstabbing. And there's we got to talk about that, because it is this harkens back to some of the old school take that games when you used to have more vicious take that games. Things like, we can even mention, say, Munchkin, because someone we played this with said it reminded them of a much more modern and updated and better ruled Munchkin. And now, I didn't feel that myself, but I saw where they were coming from. But I think our friend Juliana said it best when she said, you don't want to play this game with people you don't know, because there's so much viciousness in it. People could have a chance of taking that too seriously. Mm-hmm. So you really want to know the group you're playing with, and you want to make sure they're people that aren't going to have either literal or figurative table flipping moments, because people could get very angry when they're like, oh man, I'm about to win, and then someone just plays that one card and they're like, no, everything you just did is wasted. And that can make people get a bit angry. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with that.
That you have to recommend, you got to have the right group.
You have to, Yeah, you have to know the people, and also they have to. It can't just be people you know. It has to be people that you know, and that you know will not be super serious.
See, like, I can do that. And when I was playing this game, when people did nasty stuff to me, we were playing mostly with people we knew, and on all the times we've played this so far, and when I had bad stuff happen to me, I laughed and I said, because it was people I knew, I said things like, "Oh, you bastard," and I laughed with it. But I could see how some people who don't have that right mentality of making sure that everything in a game is just in the game, and I'm not supposed to hold a grudge about it, I'm not supposed to get mad about it. If you play with people who don't have that mentality, that could be an issue. They might get angry and be mad at you after the game. So, okay, so where are you at? I'm gonna rate it first, because I obviously like this game better than you do. So I'm gonna give Mistborn Housewar 7 out of 10 stars, because I do really like it. And I would play it anytime the group I was with wanted to play it, as long as the group I was with were people that I knew don't take games too seriously and don't hold on to grudges, and can maturely play a very vicious take that game, because that is very important. That's an important caveat. If you yourself know that you get angry over games and rage quit games, or you know that the people you play with do that, this is not the game for you. But if you like playing very vicious take that games with people and want to step it up and have a game that's even more involved and brings out that social aspect, then oh my god, this is the game for you. Because I've never played a game that quite does that like this one does. So now, where are you at with it?
I think I'm between like a 5 and a 6.
So a 5.5?
Mainly because it's not that long.
Okay. No, it doesn't overstay its welcome.
Yeah, and so even though I don't really like the negotiating and everything like that, I mean, because it only takes like an hour and a half to play, I mean, I might play it again in the future.
So you might get in the mood to play it?
I don't know if I would get in the mood. If someone asked, like, if someone really wanted to play it, like, they had never played it, they were, like, super fans of the books, I might be like, okay, fine. But
you're not going to ask to play
I'm never going to ask to play it.
So a 5.5, now a 5.5, now 5 is, like, mediocre, a 6 is, like, I like it, but I need to be in the mood to play it. So that's somewhere between those. It's not really a negative score, but it's not a very positive score either. That's like half a thumb up, I would say. And
well, it's not my type of game. It's not a bad game. It's just not a game for me.
But you realize that the mechanics of the game are good.
Yes.
This is just because your personal preference.
Yeah.
So now that being said, I really like this game. And if we had the right group of people and other people wanted to play it, I'm glad that you would occasionally play it, because I want to play this game more. Actually, I love the negotiating aspect. But there's a couple things I want to mention. So one thing is, I feel that, now we've been playing this game at the standard length. They have a timing deck, which is your normal deck of the problem deck. And with the way it works for setting up the problem deck is you split it into 4 equal parts. You shuffle Vin, who usually triggers the end of the game, unless the end of the game is triggered by the unrest. You shuffle her into one of the 4 parts, put 2 of the other 4 parts on top, and the other quarter of the deck is just removed and not used. So now this makes it hard for people to card count and know that their card's still there in the problem deck, because there's a quarter of them gone. Now they recommend that is the standard size game, but you can make it shorter by taking out 50% of the deck instead of a quarter. I think that would be too quick, though, and I think it would be harder for people who wanted to cause the unrest to happen. Yeah, and the long one is you literally use the entire deck, and I don't like that concept either, because it makes it easier to card count. You know what's still in there for the most part, and also it would make it too easy for someone to win through unrest, because you'd be waiting way too long for Vin to come up. So I think the standard length of game is really good. I think the other 2 option rules, while I like that they're there, I think the standard length of game is actually really perfect for this game. One other thing I do want to draw attention to, which we forgot to mention, our friend Duke really pointed out to us. Now, this game uses hidden scoring, and you really have to be able to know what your score is, and have a general idea of where everybody else's score is to know if you want the city to be saved or to burn it down. and he pointed out that people who are really good at keeping all those numbers in their heads would have a definite advantage in this game. Now, I don't mind that. I mean, there's different things that let different people have advantages in all sorts of games, so that's just sort of a part of this game that you got to know going into it. But I did want to also say that. Was there anything else you wanted to add in about Mistborn Houseware?
I don't think so.
So there you have it. That is 7 stars from me, 5.5 stars from Lynn. That was what you said. So 7 stars from me, 5.5 stars from me. So that's a 1.5 thumbs up from us here at the Board Game Captain. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, either on this video or on the game Mistborn Houseware, be sure to put them in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this review and tutorial and you'd like to see us do more like it, be sure to give this video a like, share this video on any social media you may have, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Board Game Captain. That's Captain spelled with a K on YouTube. And until next time, game on.